And now for the main event. The assembly of the bottom half of the crankcase. As you can see, I already have my transmission in place. I did this previously, I don't know if I'm taking it out again. It's not hard, it just drops right in over the selector forks. It can really only go in one way. If you can't figure this out, odds are maybe you should be having somebody else do this. So next up is the Kickstarter. Noting the two locating bosses here. Whoever put mine together last time didn't locate them on the two pins, and so they crushed the two bushings. I don't think this engine ever ran after they rebuilt it. It was just a pretty shit job all around. So, first up we'll put the shaft in. Like so. Looks pretty good. Already have our oil pump drive in. Here we have our water pump drive shaft. I think we're going to clean that up. Solvent and a brush. Take all of the what's left of any dirt out of it. Much better. A little bit of what appear to be old case sealant on here. Take that off. Put a scrape with a razor blade here. Not that it's really going to make any lick of difference at the end of the day, but just because I'll know it was there. There we go. Nice and clean. And I'm going to reassemble everything with just a dab of white grease on it. You can use pretty much any lubricant here. Oil, grease. It's just to provide some initial lubrication for when the engine starts up before any oil gets splashed around. So we're going to put a little bit. It doesn't take much, that's way more than you need really. Just like that. And the shaft sits in. Should sit right in here. I don't need any grease on the bearings, however. Clean those off. So they just sit in their bosses. Just like this. I would say that pin is backwards. Or that bearing is moved. Well, that bearing is moved. There we go. I sincerely wonder if it was run that way previously. It seems that this bearing on the end of the shaft has slid down. Hopefully they didn't run it that way. There we go. It's the water pump drive shaft. Water pump on these is located on the underside of the motor. The little shaft sits right here, pokes out of the bottom. It's driven by that. There we go. A little bit more grease and a few little spots here. Just because I can, because it's not going to hurt anything. That should really just do it. Just like that. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on this kickstart shaft here. So it slides nice and easy. Happy days. You can see here, this is the bushing that sits on this end of the shaft that they hadn't lined up correctly, or had on backwards is my guess. So you can see that they actually pressed that little notch there beside the hole. It's not supposed to be there. They actually had it lined up and tightened down the bolt so hard that they actually punched the pin through it, which actually cracked. You can see it just there on the top. Cracked the bushing and ovaled it quite badly. It's junk. Small. A bigger one. Too big. You can see where this is going. 0.8. Also too small. Wow. The 9 is too big, and the 8 is too small. Probably some stupid sized Suzuki only part. Well, that seems okay, you know. Okay with that. Okay, and now we're going to put a little O-ring in the water gallery there. I never install any O-ring dry, regardless of where it's going. It's a tiny little bit of grease on it. Just a light film. And I'll pop that right in place. Now for the exciting moment, where we get to put in our crankshaft. This one's been fully rebuilt by an excellent local rebuilder, whom I've had a couple of crankshafts done with now. You always want to have these rebuilt when you have the engine apart and you don't know how old the crank seals are. Always have them done. This one's had all the crank seals replaced, so he's gone through, he cleaned it all up, he replated all the little metal shields, did a beautiful job. Alright, let's put it in. Okay, now that it's sitting in position, these crankshafts weigh a goddamn ton. Each bearing has a locating hole in it that corresponds to a stud in the case, so you want to rotate that around You feel it drop in. There's also a small dot on top that should locate where it is, and that's opposite. You know that you're sitting in the right spot. But you'll also feel it drop in. That one did. That one. That one. And that one. And then all of the seals also locate. Like that. So there's a lot of good guides on how to put the whole bottom end back together. This is not meant to be a step-by-step guide per se. So I highly recommend you go out and look at one. But what I'm doing here is these two seals should be against the bearing surface, not against the crank web surface. I'm also locating all the ridges on the seals into the corresponding grooves in the case. Something like that. So what I'm going to do now is take a little bit of my preferred two-stroke oil. Doesn't really matter, they're all good enough these days. As long as you get one that's meant for your engine, in this case one that's meant for a oil injection system. Not that for this part it particularly matters. But I'm going to take a small syringe and I'm going to put some oil into all of the bearings all the way through, just to lubricate it so that for the initial startup of the engine before the pump pushes the oil in, it's not running dry. Basically, you just want to lubricate any spot where two moving parts are, or anywhere where the seal is in contact with the shaft. You don't need a whole heck of a lot. In fact, I'm probably using more than I really need to. It's not going to hurt anything by having a little too much in there. It's going to smoke more on startup. I'd rather it smoke for a few minutes and find out that all my bearings are burned up. Now ready to give the case a clean, seal it, and put the top on. Just using a bit of mild solvent in this case, a little bit of brake clean on a rag to clean all the mating surfaces so that the new gasket sealant will stick to a nice clean surface. And we're going to do the same for the top case here as well. So now, using the correct 3-bond case sealant, don't use any other substitute. This is not something you want to have to do twice. We'll put a smearing of this over top of the top case. For some reason Suzuki specifies putting it on the top case only and then setting it on the bottom case, not putting it on both surfaces. I have no idea why. It should make any difference. However, that's what they suggest, and they designed and built it. Well, that's what we're going to do. You want to wear gloves for this. This is toxic stuff. Meow. Not the most thrilling part of the job. Stuff sure stinks though. And judging by all the warnings on the label, you know it must be good. Nice even coat over the entire thing. This is not part of the job you want to rush. So let's give you a quick view of what I just did. You can see that I've coated all the mating surfaces of the two crankcase halves with sealant. Didn't put gobs and gobs of it on there, but enough that it'll make a good seal. Now, the exciting moment. It all goes back together. Nice and awkwardly. I think move this a little bit. God damn, that's heavy. Amazing how much the crankshaft weighs. The cases are nice and light until that sucker gets put in it. And it weighs a ton. Almost. What is it stuck on? There we go. Must be stuck on something there. I wonder what it's stuck on. Oh, there we go. rocking. In the middle. I think we're good. And now we're going to put the top bolts in just loosely to hold it together. A little dab of anti-seize on each one. Should help it come apart next time. Hoping there won't be a next time. But if there is, odds are it'll be me taking it apart. The nice thing is all the bolts, all the bolt holes are numbered. So you know where they go back, assuming you made a note of where they came out of. If not, there are measurements and guides online that will tell you how long the bolt for each hole is, so you can measure it out, figure out where they all go, and confirm that they were all in the right spot to begin with. Unfortunately, the SD card filled up there at a rather bad moment. I couldn't stop to download all the information off of it because the gasket sealant was already on the engine cases, and if I had stopped, it would have dried. Then we had to scrape it all off, clean it, and put it all back again, and that was way too much work. I just, well, wasn't going to do it. So you missed me putting all the bolts in top and bottom and torquing them down, which wasn't terribly exciting. You just missed me putting in 33 some odd bolts in the top and bottom of the crankcase.